The day was Saturday, May 24th, 2025. An ordinary day, it might have seemed. The sun likely rose over the Malabar coast as it always does. Boats would have sailed, fishermen casting their nets. But the sea holds surprises. Deep waters conceal deep dangers. Far from shore, events were unfolding. Events that would soon send ripples of alarm towards land. The vast expanse of the Arabian Sea was about to become a scene of urgent crisis. A routine voyage was turning into a fight for survival. The tranquility of the waters was about to be shattered. The incident occurred approximately 38 nautical miles southwest of Kochi. This is not a stone's throw, yet it is dangerously close. Close enough for concern. Close enough for potential impact on the Indian coastline. The specific coordinates mark a point in the ocean. A point where steel met the ocean's might and faltered. The blue waters, usually a pathway for commerce, turned treacherous. This particular stretch of sea, accustomed to the passage of giant vessels, witnessed a sudden lurch. A moment where control was lost to the unforgiving power of the waves. The vessel at the heart of this drama was the MSC ELSA III, a container ship, vast in its construction. It sailed under the Liberian flag, a common sight in international waters. These ships are the titans of global trade. They carry the world's goods across immense oceans. Day and night they traverse the globe. The MSC ELSA III was one such titan. But even titans can be humbled. Its journey on this day was catastrophically interrupted. Its strong hull, designed to withstand storms, was compromised. The core of the emergency was stark. The MSC ELSA III was listing badly. It tilted, succumbing to forces unseen, and as it listed, its precious cargo began to break free. 6 to 8 containers, large metal boxes, tumbled into the sea. These were not just any containers. Initial reports whispered of potentially dangerous contents. The ocean, a vast receiver, began to claim them. Each falling container amplified the danger. The ship's problem was now the ocean's problem, and soon, it would be Kerala's problem too. Aboard the stricken MSC ELSA, 24 crew members faced peril. Their floating city of steel had become a trap. The immense vessel was now unstable. Far from home, they faced the ocean's raw power. Their safety was the first priority. The human cost is always the most pressing concern. Every soul on board mattered. The cargo, now tumbling into the waves, was a major source of dread. Reports flagged it as potentially dangerous. This uncertainty was a heavy burden. The sea offered no immediate answers. The fallen boxes became mysteries, each one a possible Pandora's box. This unknown threat transformed the incident into a potential environmental emergency. The contents, once documented, were now wildcards. The gravity of the situation prompted swift action. The Kerala State Disaster Management Authority issued an extraordinary alert. The evening of May 24, 2025 became charged with urgency. Officials and response teams were mobilized. The information was incomplete, but the potential for harm was clear. Preparations had to be made. Plans had to be drawn. The coastline needed to be protected. A scare rippled outwards from the incident site. It touched the maritime community first, then it reached the shores of Kerala. The sea is a lifeline for Kochi. It is also a conduit for risk. The thought of hazardous materials drifting towards the coast sparked widespread concern. Public health, marine ecosystems, local fisheries, all were potentially at risk. The incident served as a stark reminder. The vast ocean, while vital for global trade, can also deliver disaster to our doorsteps with little warning. The waters off the Kochi coast can shift without warning. On that fateful Saturday, the Arabian Sea was a restless entity. Yet, the ocean breathed with a power that was both immense and subtle. Swells, long and deep, rolled under the keel of the MSC ELSA III. These movements carried a hidden strength, a strength that could test even the largest of vessels. The sea was beginning to assert its dominance. Container ships are built for resilience, yet they are not invincible. The MSC ELSA III found itself grappling with conditions that began to exceed routine challenges. The sea was persistent, probing for weaknesses. The crew would have been on alert, monitoring instruments, scanning the waves. The problem aboard the MSC ELSA III was escalating into a true emergency. The precise moment of critical failure remains shrouded in the chaos of the event. Perhaps a rogue wave, larger and more powerful than its brethren, struck the MSC ELSA III broadside. Such waves are the ocean's brutal surprises, appearing from nowhere, capable of overwhelming even large ships. Or maybe an internal shift occurred. Tons of cargo, improperly secured or dislodged by the relentless motion, could have suddenly cascaded to one side. This would create an immediate, severe imbalance. The ship, once a stable platform, would lurch violently, its equilibrium shattered in an instant. The sound of tortured metal would have filled the air. Steel, designed for strength, can only endure so much. As the MSC ELSA III tilted further, its structure groaned under unimaginable stresses. Alarms likely blared across the vessel, their piercing calls a stark announcement of grave danger. On the bridge, officers would have fought for control, orders would be shouted, engines perhaps manipulated to counteract the lean. But the ship was now a wounded giant. Its own weight, once a symbol of its might, became a liability, pulling it further towards the unforgiving sea. The angle of the list grew steadily, relentlessly. Degrees on the clinometer would have marked the ship's descent into peril. 10 degrees, 15, 20, each number a step closer to catastrophe. Furniture would slide, equipment would crash to the deck, walking would become climbing. Daily routines transformed into a desperate struggle for footing, for safety. The laws of physics are absolute at sea. Gravity, combined with the shifting center of buoyancy, was pulling the MSC ELSA III over. The crew knew the tipping point was approaching fast. On deck and below, the 24 crew members faced a terrifying reality. Their training would have kicked in, emergency procedures, muster stations, but training cannot fully prepare one for the sheer terror of a massive ship succumbing to the ocean. Some might have been trying to identify the cause, to make repairs. Others, securing what they could, or preparing lifeboats. The fight was on, not just to save the ship, but to save themselves. The sea's assault was relentless, and the ship was losing its battle, inch by agonizing inch. Then came the terrible sound, a sound distinct from the groaning hull or the roar of the wind and waves. It was the sharp, percussive crack of securing lashings snapping under immense strain, followed by the deep, resonant boom and screech of metal against metal. One by one, then perhaps in a horrifying rush, the containers began to break free. These colossal steel boxes, each weighing many tons, were torn from their places. They slid across the steeply angled deck. They smashed into railings, into other containers, before finally plunging overboard. 6 to 8 massive containers were ripped from the MSC ELSA III. They tumbled into the churning gray waters. Some might have hit the side of the ship as they fell, adding to the damage and the terror. Each splashdown was a punctuation mark in the unfolding disaster. These were not just lost goods. They were, as initial reports chillingly suggested, carriers of potentially dangerous cargo. Now these hazards were loose, adrift in the ocean, uncontrolled, unpredictable. The ship's crisis had now spilled outwards, seeding a new threat in the waters. The loss of the containers dramatically altered the MSC ELSA III's predicament. The ship, already listing severely, might have lurched further as the weight on its upper decks shifted so suddenly. Or perhaps paradoxically, the loss offered a momentary slight reprieve in its list, though the underlying cause of its instability remained. The deck, once neatly stacked, now bore the scars of the event-twisted metal, broken supports. The remaining cargo was also at risk. The crew watched, helpless, as parts of their vessel's load were claimed by the sea. For the crew, this moment was one of profound crisis. The immediate danger of capsizing was still paramount. The sound of the containers crashing into the sea was a terrifying confirmation of their dire situation. They were on a failing ship, miles from land, with unknown hazards now polluting the waters around them. The fight for survival intensified. The ship was crippled. Its cargo, a source of potential environmental harm, was now beyond their control. The echoes of those falling containers would resonate long after they vanished beneath the waves. As the MSC ELSA III succumbed to the sea's embrace, a mayday call pierced the airwaves. The universal distress signal spoken with urgency and fear. From the tilting bridge, the radio operator broadcast their dire position. The lives of 24 souls hung precariously in the balance. This was not just a call for help, it was a plea for survival. The message raced towards the shore, picked up by the Indian Coast Guard. A major rescue operation was now imperative, and time was already an enemy. The rescuers faced a race against the clock, against the elements, against the failing integrity of a massive ship. On board the MSC ELSA III, The crew battled their own fears and the ship's relentless tilt. Their training was now their lifeline. They gathered at muster stations, donning life jackets. Officers maintained order, assessing lifeboat viability. Launching lifeboats on a listing vessel is perilous. The wait for rescue is agonizing. Every creak of the hull, every wave sent fresh anxiety. They were alone, surrounded by the vast ocean. Lights failing, deck angle more extreme. Communication with the outside world was their comfort. Knowing help was on its way. Hope wrestled with despair. Coast Guard cutters sliced through the waves. Helicopters readied, rotors poised. The same sea conditions challenged rescuers. Visibility was poor. Rain, wind, and vessel motion made progress difficult. Rescuers faced risks, their courage a force against the ocean's fury. Every second counted. Reaching the vessel was the first hurdle. Assessing the situation accurately was crucial. Getting alongside was dangerous. Rescuers had to consider their own safety. The psychological pressure was immense. The fate of 24 lives rested on their skill and bravery. The sea showed no mercy. The first sight of rescue assets would have been a profound relief for the crew of the MSC ELSA 3. A light on the horizon, the distant thrum of a helicopter. These were signals that they were no longer alone. The rescuers, upon arrival, faced a chaotic scene, a massive container ship listing at a dangerous angle. Debris, perhaps including some of the lost containers, floating nearby. The wind and waves making any close approach treacherous. Several methods of rescue would have been considered. If conditions allowed, rescue boats might attempt to come alongside the stricken vessel. Crew members could then be transferred, perhaps via ladders or ropes. This is a high-risk maneuver, especially with a moving, unstable platform like the MSC ELSA 3. Another option, particularly if the ship was too unstable or the seas too rough, was helicopter rescue. Brave rescue swimmers might be lowered into the water or onto the deck. Crew members could then be winched up one by one into the hovering aircraft. Each extraction a small victory against the odds. The physical act of rescue was fraught with peril. Imagine trying to climb a rope ladder or being strapped into a harness on a steeply tilted, slippery deck. All this in poor weather, with the ship groaning beneath. The roar of helicopter rotors or the crash of waves would make communication difficult. Fear would be a constant companion. The rescuers, calm and professional, guided the terrified crew. They worked with precision and speed, knowing that the ship's condition could worsen at any moment. The safety of each crew member was paramount. Slowly, painstakingly, the crew members were brought to safety. Each successful transfer, whether to a rescue vessel or into a helicopter, was a moment of intense relief. Some crew members might have been injured during the ship's ordeal or the evacuation. They would require immediate medical attention. The process was likely slow, methodical, and incredibly tense. The rescuers focused on one life, then the next, then the next. They were pulling people back from the brink, from the cold grasp of the sea that threatened to claim the massive ship and all aboard. As the rescue operation progressed, the numbers began to clarify. Of the 24 crew members aboard the MSC ELSA 3, 21 were successfully rescued. 21 individuals pulled from a desperate situation. They were alive. They were safe, or at least on their way to safety and medical care. This news, when it came, was a testament to the bravery and efficiency of the rescue teams. It was a significant achievement in the face of daunting conditions. Each rescued soul represented a family spared from tragedy, a life given a second chance. The relief was palpable. The rescued crew members were likely in varying states of physical and emotional distress. Some might have suffered hypothermia from exposure. Others, cuts, bruises, or more serious injuries sustained as the ship lurched and lost its cargo. All would be suffering from shock. The terror of their experience would not easily fade. They were taken to Kochi, an Indian port city, where medical teams were on standby. Debriefings would eventually follow, but the immediate priority was their well-being. Their accounts would be crucial in understanding the full sequence of the disaster. However, the relief was tinged with grave concern. 21 rescued meant 3 were still missing, 3 souls unaccounted for. The search and rescue operation did not end with the successful extraction of the majority. It shifted into a new, more desperate phase, the search for the missing 3. Hope remained, but it was a fragile thing against the vastness of the ocean. Had they been swept overboard earlier? Had they been trapped in a part of the ship that rescuers couldn't reach? These were agonizing questions for their crewmates and for the authorities. The search for the missing crew members would continue. Patrol vessels and aircraft would meticulously scan the area around the last known position of the MSC ELSA 3. They would search the waters where the containers had fallen. The rescuers, though weary, would press on. Every effort would be made. The protocol for such situations is clear. The search continues until all hope is exhausted. For the families of the missing, an agonizing wait began. The fate of their loved ones remained unknown, lost somewhere in the turbulent waters off the Kochi Coast. The sea had yielded many, but not all. The fall of containers from the MSC ELSA 3 was more than just a loss of goods. It was the beginning of a new, insidious fear. The phrase potentially dangerous cargo cast a long, dark shadow over the incident. This was not mere flotsam. It was a possible chemical or biological threat. The vast Arabian Sea now seemed to hold its breath. Every wave towards the Kerala coast could carry whispers of this unseen hazard. The unknown nature of the cargo intensified the crisis. Global shipping lanes carry countless containers daily. Many hold materials essential for industry and agriculture, yet dangerous if mishandled. Think of corrosive industrial chemicals, or highly flammable petroleum products, perhaps pesticides designed to kill, now free in the ocean. Even reactive substances that could explode on contact with water. Each of these possibilities paints a grim picture. The lost containers were like sealed vaults, their contents a terrifying secret now surrendered to the deep. The sheer variety of what they contained made the situation exceptionally complex, demanding swift and careful assessment by authorities. International maritime law, specifically the International Maritime Dangerous Goods (IMDG) code, provides strict rules. These regulations govern the classification, packaging, labeling, and stowage of hazardous materials. They exist precisely to prevent disasters like the one unfolding off Kochi. The fact that these containers were lost overboard indicated a serious failure in this chain of safety. Perhaps the securing equipment failed, or maybe extreme conditions overwhelmed standard procedures. Whatever the cause, the system of safeguards had been breached. The focus now had to shift from prevention, which had failed, to managing the dire consequences. The most immediate challenge for responders was to identify the exact contents of those 6 to 8 specific containers. The ship's manifest, a detailed list of all cargo, held the key. But accessing this document quickly from a stricken vessel was not guaranteed. Verifying its accuracy for the specific containers lost overboard was another hurdle. Out of potentially thousands of containers on a large vessel like the MSC ELSA 3, pinpointing the lost ones and their declared contents was vital. This information vacuum became a breeding ground for anxiety. It severely complicated the initial response strategies, forcing officials to plan for multiple worst-case scenarios. Section 2. Decoding the danger, what lies within. Dangerous cargo can devastate marine life and ecosystems. Breached containers release toxic substances. Marine life faces immediate harm. Fish struggle in poisoned waters. Dolphins and turtles suffer chemical burns. Seabirds encounter lethal substances. Effects can be swift or insidious. The marine ecosystem is at risk. Containers pose physical dangers too. Each container is a massive steel box. Floating containers are navigational hazards. Smaller vessels risk catastrophic damage. Sunken containers become submerged obstacles. They can snag nets and damage gear. Containers vary in durability. Some are robust, others corrode quickly. Salt water accelerates corrosion. Deep sea pressure can crush containers. Chemicals may react violently with seawater. Reactions produce heat, gases, and hazards. Detailed cargo manifests are crucial. Identifying dangerous goods is essential. This helps predict substance behavior. It assesses risk to environment and responders. Guides containment and cleanup plan.